Silver little thing. So it's just like a nerve, but it's actually a tendon for a really, really small muscle right here called the plantaris. Now, you guys may have learned earlier that there's plantar flexion and dorsiflexion. Plantar flexion is putting your toe to the plants. Wearing high heels is plantar flexion. Dorsiflexion, think of like a dolphin. So a dolphin's dorsal fin is on its back, so pointing up is dorsiflexion. So the plantaris, because of its location, when this small muscle flexes, it's going to pull back on your heel, pointing your toes down. So plantaris, its function will be plantar flexion. So it's kind of built in the name as to what it does. So we said this is gastroc, soleus is underneath, and plantaris is in between. Now what's the name of this tendon?
The planial?
So the calcaneal tendon. So your heel bone is actually your calcaneus.
Okay.
And some way to memorize that. The Spanish word for socks is calcetines. You know, your heel bone's gonna be in your foot, so calcetines sounds a lot like calcaneus. Calcaneus is gonna be your heel. And it's also known as your Achilles tendon.
Okay.
Going a little bit deeper. So like I said, think of everything kind of as like hinges and pulleys and strings. So the plantaris, it's on the back, and so when this muscle contracts, it shortens, it's gonna pull back on this part, forcing your leg down, giving you plantar flexion. So think of it the same way. Now the muscles that are gonna be in the back of your leg, for the most part, are gonna be going to your toes and to your foot. So when this muscle contracts, it's going to actually flex your big toe. So this is your flexor hallucis longus. Flexor digitorum is over here. So flexing your big toe is right in the middle. Flexing your other digits is going to be more medially.
Okay, and that's the name of the big toe set.
The hallucis.
And you guys will learn for the upper body, pollicis is your thumb, hallucis is your toe.
Okay.
Now, so here we have hallucis, digitorum. Now, right in the middle is going to be tibialis posterior. Now, what's totally fair game on this test is for them to tag the tendons going to these muscles. Now, what gets kind of confusing is that they're out of order. So the muscles that we see, it's flexor hallucis, tibialis posterior, and then flexor digitorum. So hallucis, tibialis posterior, and flexor digitorum. But the tendons, they're odd. So the tendons go flexor hallucis. You have a nerve and artery, don't worry about those yet. So it's flexor hallucis and then flexor digitorum. And then tibialis posterior is going to be the last one. And the reason that happens is because tibialis posterior is actually going to dive underneath flexor digitorum and come out on the other side. So although the order is hallucis, tibialis posterior, digitorum, the order of the tendons will be hallucis, digitorum, and then tibialis posterior.
Okay.
So the tibialis posterior is up here and the tendon is down.
Yep.
It crosses under the digitorum.
Yep. So this tibialis posterior, you're exactly right, will dive under, and its tendon will emerge on the other side of flexor digitorum.
Okay. Sweet. Sorry for what you said.
No, my time is your time.
Oh, no.
Tendon is for the tendons. It's however you pronounce that.
Hallucis?
Hallucis, digitorum, and then tibialis posterior tendon.
Yeah, if you were to read it lateral to medial, it'd be just like you said. So you can follow the muscle or you can follow the tendon. So this is flexor hallucis. Flexor hallucis goes straight down. It's the first one. So that's the flexor hallucis tendon. Moving over more medially, like you said, you have your flexor digitorum tendon. And then going over even further is going to be your tibialis posterior, which is crossed over and put it in last place.
Got it.
Now on the leg, there's going to be a whole lot of P's. So there's plantaris, popliteus, all those kind of things. Plantaris is the freshman nerve. That's one's going to weakly plantar flex the foot. this is the popliteus. This swooping broad band right around the knee will act to flex the knee.
Okay.
Cool.
Good.
Moving on. So, anatomically, there's two bones in your lower leg. There's your tibia and fibula. So, like we said, this is we named the tibialis posterior. It's right by the tibia. It's on the back, so they didn't really put much thought into this. It's just tibialis posterior. Same thing on the front. You have the front of the tibia, so it's tibialis anterior. So if you were to feel in your shin bone, you can feel your bone, and if you were to run your hand laterally, that first muscle you'll feel will be tibialis anterior.
Okay. I don't know. If you're just text me where you go, and then if you're still there, okay. And if y'all are gone, just text me. See ya. Sorry.
No worries. So this is going to be the tibialis anterior. So whenever I think of muscles, I like to think about like, where can I feel the muscle? So if here's your shin, because there's no muscle on top of what you think of as your shin. And if you're just going to run your finger laterally, you'll feel that first meat, that first muscle. That'll be your tibialis anterior.
Okay.
Now, do you guys understand extension and flexion of different joints?
Well, yeah, you think so.
All right. So for the most part, flexion means closing the angle. Extension means opening the angle. The only one that's really kind of confusing for is your hip. And your hip, moving your leg backwards is extension, and bringing your leg forward is flexion. So, like I said, if we're thinking about this as just a bunch of hinges and pulleys, if this is a muscle pulling in this direction, are we going to be curling our toes or bringing our toes up? Yeah,
Yeah.
which would be
Flex.
so flexion will actually be if you're curling your toes in, because you're making
Oh.
if this is your toes at 180 degrees, you're curling it in. That's making a smaller angle. But if you extend it, you're making a larger angle.
So would
Oh.
you be flexing your ankle then in order to do that?
Yeah.
Well, so people say it. So any way your ankle moves
I-
will still be flexion, but they say it's plantar flexion, which is to the plants or where
Oh,
your heels,
oh.
or dorsiflexion, where
Yeah, you bring it up.
you're bringing it up. And so,
Okay.
so these are going to be your extensors.
So when you point your toes, that's not really extending then? That's,
When you point your toes,
when you just push your toes out, you're
go like that.
Or down?
down, like
Ballerina or
like a ballerina, if you're pointing them.
That's plantar flexion right there. So
Okay.
if you're doing the ballerina kind of standing your toes, that's all plantar flexion.
Okay.
So if we're on the anterior side, we're going to be extending our toes. So a cool rule of thumb is just follow the tendons. So this is going to be an extensor. These tendons branch off, and it looks like it goes to 4 separate toes, digits 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so it's extending the digits. It's going to be extensor digitorum.
Okay.
This one, it's a little smaller, and it's only going to the big toe. What's the name for the big toe?
Hallux.
Yep. So this is going to be extensor hallucis. This little wedge-shaped muscle right there. This tendon is going to branch off, go right to the big toe, whereas these are going to branch off into 4 separate tendons going to the other digits. So that takes care of the front of the leg. If we're talking about this in a more lateral sense, the most lateral bone in your lower leg is going to be your fibula. So there's 2 separate muscles here, and they're both going to have the term fibularis in there. Now, its job will be to, if you tug on this part, it'll be to bring your foot out. So if your foot's flat, it'll be bringing it out. And so the two muscles are going to be fibularis longus and rate. So striation means what direction are all the muscle fibers going. So here the striations are all going transverse, all going at an angle. Here all the muscle fibers are going straight down. Where they're all going straight down, that'll be fibularis longus. Now where it changes to a more transverse or it's going at an angle, this will be fibularis brevis. So longus, and then brevis. Now you guys go to the cadaver lab, you'll see that it's not just fibularis longus cuts off and then all brevis, but rather it's mostly fibularis longus and then brevis is just kind of at the top on the bottom.
Okay.
Okay.
So retinaculum. What the retinaculum is a thick band of connective tissue that'll keep your tendons from bouncing up. So, for example, in your hand, you have tendons going up to each digit, but when you curl your hand in, those tendons, they're pulling on them, but they're not popping out. So what happens is the tendons go underneath the retinaculum in your hand, called your carpal tunnel. And so it's going to go under and it'll go to each bone in your hand. So when you flex on that tendon, it'll curl in your hand. And so what that'll do, it'll stop these tendons from bowing out. So if this shortens and there's no retinaculum, this tendon will go straight up like that. And your skin will
Oh,
pop out.
I get it. Yeah.
See what I mean?
So it's just like a rubber band holding them all down.
Exactly.
So you can't see that really on
What do you mean?
there?
No, it's this.
It's the white thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
so okay.
Yeah, no sweat. And so that'll be this will be your extensor retinaculum because it's surrounding what? It's surrounding the extensor tendons. You have your fibular retinaculum because it's surrounding what? The fibular
Fibular.
tendons.
Okay.
Most of it's going to be these people that wrote these books, they didn't really think too much as to,
Yeah.
let's think of a tricky name. It's just, what bone is around it? What does it do? Is it extend? Is it flex? Is it greater, lesser? Is it big, small? It's pretty straightforward. And so that should cover most of the lower leg, with a few exceptions. So we said that, what was the name of this muscle? I know you can know without looking at your
The
sheet. Think about where it is. and what-
Extensor digitorum longus.
Yes, exactly. So if there's a longus, there's bound to be a brevis. If there's a greater, there's bound to be a lesser. If there's an anterior, there's bound to be a posterior. We just saw that. Tibialis anterior, tibialis posterior. If they put that kind of extra word, it's because there's another location that you can find that in a different area. So if here's extensor digitorum longus, extensor digitorum brevis will be 46. These muscles, they're kind of running long ways like so.
Okay. So they just kind of wrap around and kind of
Yep.
spread out.
And so when they contract, they're still going to extend the toes.
Right.
What other terms do we have?
I think they have the digiti minimi and the helix, the ones that.
Cool. All right. So when you're abducting and you're abducting, like let's say you abduct a child, it means you're taking a child away from its family. When we're abducting a leg, a finger, a pinky, or a big toe, it means taking it away from the main body. Just like you take a child away from its main family. So abductor digiti minimi is going to be on the side, and when it contracts, it'll pull out the digiti minimi or the pinky toe. Same story over here. This muscle belly right here, when it contracts, will abduct the halices.
Okay. Yep.
So that's why I always thought it was really effective to think of things as a bunch of like strings and pulleys, because if look at what happens if I pull on this, this contracts, I'm pulling it that way. This side contracts, I'm pulling it that way. Either way, you're abducting, but you're just abducting a different digit.
And what's the one on the bottom? Is that the digit?
All right, so we said these are all extensors.
Yeah.
It's on the bottom. When they flex, they're going to curl in the toes, which is called.
Flexor digiti.
So they're flexing. So these are going to be flexors on the bottom. Of the foot.
Right.
And so it's short, and so it's going to be brevis. So it's going to be flexor digitorum brevis. Now on an exam, flexor digitorum brevis, you can see there's only 3 parts to it. 1, 2, and 3. And so they only are going to flex 3 toes. They're going to flex toe number 2, toe number 3, and toe number 4. There's going to be separate tendons. There's going to be separate flexors for digiti minimi and for halicis.
Wait, so the one on the top is 2 through 5
For
the extensor digitorum longus.
extensor digitorum, I believe it goes to 1 through 5.
1 through 5?
I believe so.
Oh, I
Does it say 2 through 5?
think so. I wrote 2 through 5 because the extensor There's one for the big toe.
Well, so like we said, there's extensor digitorum longus, and there's also extensor hallucis longus. So if there's an extensor hallucis longus, there's going to be an extensor hallucis brevis. And so while they're all kind of together, if they were to label 46, it'll be extensor digitorum. And if they were to label whatever this is, it'll be extensor hallucis. So actually, you were right. It does do 2 through 5, and there's a separate extensor, although it's in the same region, for the extensor brevis of the hallucis.
Okay.
Okay.
Is the first review tomorrow, or like extra?
Yeah, yeah. I know. If you're hungry, you can go and go. I know.